Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be taking a look at a Earth Rune deck, pretty popular rune variant other than of course the Mysteria or more storm based decks. This actually seems to do pretty well in some situations. Personally, I always struggle with these decks when making these videos. I just end up on some mass losing streaks against decks that I really shouldn't be losing against, but honestly, overall, it's a strong deck. You just need to be able to pilot it properly, and I think that's where I'm lacking in the skill department for this variation, as I just can't seem to get those consistent games all the time. But otherwise, I would definitely promote this deck as reasonably strong, at least tier 2 minimum. So we're going to get right into it and check it out. Also, sorry if there's a little bit of a background hum there. I forgot to turn the fan off. That's off now, so that's all good. But going into the first match here, we are playing against Portal, which is not a bad start. Owen plus Magic Founder and Witch Snap really isn't too bad at all. Actually, I think both our matches for this video are Portal, because this seems to be one of the few decks that handles Portal okay, but doesn't handle much else, unfortunately, in my experience. I have seen people doing, 10 plus win streaks with this variation of deck, but I just don't have that kind of luck, unfortunately. The wind up, pretty common, not a surprise at all. And we're just really going to be aiming for these Mysteria plays as quickly as we can get them. There's not really much else to do with this hand, but it should be pretty reliable. And there's Witch Snap. It's a really nice one if you're looking to put some more amulets on the board for these Earth Essence plays. Disciple of Destruction, they're definitely pumping puppets, filling their hand. But, I mean, we're going to go Magic Founder now. We've got two Staff of Whirlwinds, which are great clears once they do have these buffs on them, especially against Portal decks. This one does appear to be more puppet based. I think the second matchup is much heavier on the artifacts, so at least we have a couple of nice variants to verse. Sword Angel, really nice rush, especially when it's the only follower you've got, of course. And burning through these puppets, at least we didn't get to see a Omen. That's usually the only risk, is running into an early Omen when they have that many puppets. And we go for the second Magic Founder. I probably should have went for the Golem play, but Magic Founder's not bad. I mean, a Golem probably would have survived that puppet play a little bit better, but I think it worked out. Especially since we can basically go for a reasonably full board. I mean, depends on how they take this. Of course, they end up with Fall from Grace. Not a common card, but this Portalcraft is teching it in. That pretty much gets rid of any chance we had at using our Golem. And we've only got one more in this variant of the deck. I would run 3 if I had 3. We did fortunately end up drawing another one, so we did get the chance to at least do some damage. And since we will be doing 5 with the Ritual, 4, I think it's 4, no 3, sorry, with the Whirlwind, we're actually looking at a pretty promising hand, and 3 with the Mysterian as well, so we've actually got a lot of options for damage. Even going up against this Android is going to be very easy. And Amulet will stop us dealing too much damage, but since we are pretty much limiting ourselves to mostly 3, we should be fine. Fall Angel will give us another 3. And it looks like they're probably aiming for Maisha, so you definitely always want to finish on turn 9. You don't want to let them get any closer to killing you. This is why we did put them within lethal range. And now that we have drawn the Adorable Genius, there is not many ways they can win. They would definitely need a heal. That's the only way I can see them winning this. Unfortunately, none of those are heal cards, so it looks like we are going to take this game with, of course, Cagliostra. She'll do a wonderful job at just taking this now. Her spell is such a handy card to have when you need it, since it does, of course, give you a body as well, which works really nicely in these sort of matches. And for the next game, of course, as I mentioned, we are going up against Portal. This one is a much heavier artifact portal. So, like I mentioned, a couple of different variants. Unfortunately, like I said, I did go on a pretty mass losing streak. I did go on a massive one. It was super disappointing. I didn't want to have to deal with it, but we managed to get these couple of wins with this deck. But again, I think that's more down to me as a player, because these couple of games went off really well when I could get the deck to function. Unfortunately, I just felt like I was bricking too much, and maybe that is because I'm running 2 golems. I should probably run 3 and cut down on the Cagliostras, or cut down on just something to fill in that spot. Because when you got a good hand like this, it actually became quite good. It's just the fact of most of the time I wasn't getting my founders or golems. I would highly recommend hard mulliganing for those 2 cards. Mostly for the golems, because Knight of Mysteria at least gives you 6 chances to get, of course, founder. So that's always a good one to have as well. But definitely hard mulligan for golems. At least 1. I always want at least 1, because you can kind of recycle that a little bit. So this player started off quite well. Fortunately for us, Cagliostro is going to do a really good job of allowing us to kill off something and set up a silent laboratory, which does give us the couple of Earth Sigils that we'll kind of need for this turn as we set up for turn 5, 6, and 7, which are going to, of course, be flooding the board and going for golems. The only disappointing part would be to see the golem get banished. And it doesn't look like they're doing too much here, which is quite good to see. And they didn't use another Evo, so holding on to their Evos, again, another good thing to see, since Maisha does require an Evo. Going first means they've only really got 1 spare Evo if they need it, which they will probably have to use on this golem. Can't really leave that up. Ideally, I like to go Golem on 5 and then Founder Golem on 6, but since we do have the Mysteria Founders in our hand, I may as well go for both of those before going for the Golem combo. Instead, aim to get the Golem combo to go off on turn 7 instead. Maybe even later, depending on how our hand ends up. It's not always a bad way to do things. I did decide to use my last Evo point just to force this out. I don't want to be taking any unnecessary damage. And we kind of want our Mysteria to be a target, so it has to be killed. And since we did see the Maisha here, and this looks promising, it looks like they probably are going to have to sacrifice something to deal with this, which is really ideal. Otherwise, we probably would have just went for Staff of Whirlwinds and 6 damage to face, so totaling a really good number.
So it was you, after all.
And we got another Magic Founder, so we're probably going to hold off 1 more turn. We can go for the Ars Manga, which is going to do the 3 damage. That will put them a bit closer to lethal at least, so that's what we've got to aim for. Since we've already got the buff, the banishment's not a big deal. But that is quite a wide board, so we may have to go for the Staff of Whirlwinds play instead. Which isn't quite as good, but definitely the safer thing to do. We can also probably pump the Silent Laboratory and go for the Golem, because next turn's a risk. No matter what happens here, it's a risk to hold on to and go for Magic Founder. At least this way you could guarantee getting something and setting up for lethal with Rituals or the self-damage. If we had have actually got 1 more self-damage, we would have just won, but our luck wasn't quite that good. Lucky for us though, they pretty much had nothing from here and there was no way to make a comeback, so we ended up winning the game. So would I recommend this deck for the average player? Probably not. If you are a veteran player or an experienced dirt player, I would highly recommend this deck, as you could probably make it work a lot better than I can. I just play so many decks and don't stick with one enough to really learn. I really would love to learn this deck a lot more, like I had mentioned that in I think a previous Earth Rune deck, but since I do make so many deck videos and play a lot outside of that, I just don't have the time to put into just this one deck that requires obviously a lot more time to learn and get better at least again in my experience, as I do struggle to pick up this deck. Similar to how a lot of people did struggle to initially pick up the artifact mechanics in Portal when it first launched, but I had absolutely no trouble with that, so very interesting. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe for more content. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, see ya.